Well, good evening, folks, and thank you very much for waiting the extra day for the video that actually will cover last week and this coming week. And hopefully, you've already started looking at some of the things coming up. As I said, you're normally going to get this from me on a Sunday night as we wrap up the week and go forward into the next one. This week was a little out of the ordinary because it was the end of the spring break trip, so my coaching hat was on firmly, and my travel time didn't allow me to get back to Connecticut until today. So here we go, and look for this on a regular basis on Sunday evenings as we catch up. And also, not that I think of myself as any kind of good media performer or anything like that, but this is the way I find it the easiest to go through things, and a lot of times there's going to be some important information about say for instance, about the midterm or the final or an assessment or something that's in there, and this is the way I'm going to get it to you. So please just take the time to watch the video every week. It just makes things a lot easier, I think, for everybody. Okay, let's back up to week one, which is, as I said in my note last night, I'd like to offer some comments, maybe a little clarification. But the biggest comment I have is, great job, everybody. That was probably one of the best, if not the best, first week discussion that I've seen in this course. And oh, I don't know how long, because usually people kind of treat that please give me 3 issues discussion, and they just list 3 issues, and I make it very simple, and I'm just trying to get people interested. But you folks did a much better job. You started discussing, which was great, and bringing up some really important things. And I think this is how we're going to learn the most in this course. So that was just really a super job. If every week goes like this, it's going to be interesting. And I thought there were some of the usual issues that I've been seeing literally for years and things like that. Things about ticket prices, as I mentioned in the written note, that always comes up. The fan experience, what goes on with TV. But some new issues have come up, and I really enjoyed reading the comments about player safety. That's an issue I think that we're seeing more and more of, and actually in the interim since the last time we ran this class back in Mod 1 and now coming around here in Mod 4, a lot's happened on the player safety front. We see so many things going on. That's going to be, I think, paramount in a lot of teams' minds, a lot of people's minds, not just at the professional level of sport, but as we get down into the grassroots. We've already seen it affect youth sports. And I think that's got long-term effects. How do we see the growth of sports, or which ones do we see expanding? Football has taken some real hits, no pun intended. You hear some players come back and say, well, had they known about CTE and things like that, then maybe they wouldn't have played. Or they're saying, maybe I won't allow my son to play. Those kind of things are very big, I think, in my mind. The issue about paying college players, that's one that has slowly built up over the years. And I think the one thing, I'm really glad that people brought it up. We're going to put it off a little bit towards the end of the course, and I want to develop some more real more serious things about that. For instance, a lot of people have misconceptions about the revenue streams that exist in college sports. And once we understand those, I think somehow maybe our views will change, or maybe not change, but become more refined about that subject. So I'm very happy that people brought that one up. The usual ones about, I mentioned player safety and all this, those are not the usual ones. I'm kind of scratching my head here. But, we go in and see the continuation of things about economic development, how teams competitive balance was really just shining through in your discussion. We're going to spend quite a bit on that, how teams make leagues actually manage competitive balance. Is competitive balance good for a sport, for a league, for a team, for a community? Those kind of things will come up. So all in all, great job. Couldn't be happier with it. Now we're going to go into this week, where we're going to look at basically some real more detailed looks at how do teams make their money. How do they earn profits? How is the revenue generated that make all these ridiculous salaries possible, that make all these other things possible, that make it possible to want to build stadiums like Jerry Jones did down in Texas? How is it going to be possible to lure a team back and forth, and suddenly after all these years with nobody in Los Angeles, now we're talking about having 2 teams in Los Angeles in the NFL. So this week, I think you really want to spend your time with that Chapter 3 PowerPoint. The new version is better than the old, but it does talk quite a bit. Read Chapter 3. How do teams make their money? I've included some material showing you how ticket prices and other revenue sources feed in, and there's some charts involving the 4 major New York teams as to what happens there. So that's, I think, something we're going to find very interesting this week. And the question I'm asking this week is, should teams be sports teams first or businesses first? Should the profits be the ultimate goal, or should winning be the ultimate goal? How do teams make their money? What does it do for them? What does it do for their community? What does it do in the overall? Remember, there's a big picture. The other thing I think that you folks are doing really well that I always want to mention near the beginning of the course, and I really haven't had to, but I'm going to do it anyway because it can creep in. And that's just the simple fact is, when you're looking at all these materials, when you're looking at a problem here, just try to remember to look at it from a big picture perspective and look at it from the business and the economic side. Because the easy thing to do, and it sure is easy for me to fall back into that trap just as anybody else in this class, is to start thinking like a sports fan than like a sports business person. And in order to get the most out of this course and to maintain our own balance and to understand what we need to do, you need to look at it from that picture. Look at it from the business and economic side first. Don't let that fan creep up and take over the discussion, because it can happen, and it probably will happen to all of us. So that's my take on week 1. Where we're going to go on week 2. Oh, excuse me. One thing I did when I said the clarification, I do want to mention it. You know, back in week 1, there was this rather silly, if any of you watched it, maybe some of you didn't, video about a review of economic principles. And you had this guy who bills himself as the stand-up economist get up there and tell some very bad jokes about a very boring subject, which are the principles of economics, in front of a crowd who is just laughing hilariously, and that crowd happens to be a bunch of economists. Well, if you read my background, guess what? I started out as an economist. My bachelor's degree is in economics. Yes, I'm one of those guys who took all those courses. So you may wonder why that video was there. And it's really simple. I do use it in class on campus, and what I'm trying to do, this is my little secret. I sit back and show that video, and I sit back and watch and try to see who laughs. And if somebody laughs a whole lot at it, that means they remember other economic principles. If somebody scratches their head and laughs a little bit, then I said, well, maybe they remember some. And if somebody looks at it with a long face and goes, why is this even here? This is the most boring. What is going on here? Means you probably don't remember much, which is not a bad thing. I'm not making any judgments, but that's why that was there. So if you're the guy that laughed, then you're going to go right ahead and dive into the sports side. If the guy that laughed a little bit, then maybe you got to make sure that you are ready to review an economic principle or two. And if you ever have any questions on that front, please ask. I'll be glad to help and step in. And if you're the person that sat there and said, why is this here? What is wrong with this picture? Make sure you got your old economics book on hand. It'll help you quite a bit. And that's the reason I did it, nothing more. So I'm not, there's usually a method to my madness when I do something, and I just want everybody to make sure that we were clear on that. So backing up, great job. Really enjoyed reading everything. The interaction between the members of the class is fantastic. I will jump in because I've got a lot of questions. Sometimes, just like anybody else, I've got more questions than I've got answers, but I think that's where we're going to learn the most. Okay, so Obviously, if you do have any questions, get in touch with me. Keep it up. Go ahead and get started on this week. And I'll see you by this time next Sunday night. Thanks.